All right, so today's training is talking all about macros and macros to hit your protein targets. Now, just really quick, curious to hear who here finds that it may be a struggle to hit their protein count or their total dailies. You guys can drop in the comment section, say me down below if you guys find it consistently hard to hit your protein. Okay, and also welcome in newer members. Pooja, Cassie, it's nice to have you guys here. Okay, let me know with a me down below if this is something you struggle with, hitting enough protein consistently. And when I say consistently, I mean, let's just say 80, 90% of the time during the week. Let me know if that's you. Okay, Cassie says it can be tough. I prefer to be a pescatarian. Anybody else that may be struggling with this? Okay, Lauren says yes. I see your hand being raised. All right, Rachel, welcome in. All right, so let's get into the training for today. All right. And as always, and Pooja, I see the thumbs up. As always, we will post the slides up for you guys. Okay. And post the recording up. But it's good to have you guys make it here. Try to make it every Tuesdays at the very minimum, because Tuesdays trainings are important. Okay. Welcome new members. It's easy because I don't mind eating the same thing every day. Nice. Yeah. So when you keep things consistent, there's pros and cons, right? If you guys keep things consistent, you're eating the same foods, right? It's easier to hit your macros, but of course, like just variety and just potential boredom of the foods is a possibility, right? But anyways, let's dive into the training for today. So first off, what are macros? Okay, macros stand for macronutrients, and there's going to be three of them specifically: protein, carbs, and fats. So macros are counted as grams because the body needs them in larger quantities compared to your micronutrients, which are counted as in milligrams. So micronutrients will be your minerals, it'll be your vitamins. Now, in terms of calories, and this is something maybe you didn't know, but your three macros, they make up your total calories. So there's 4 calories per gram of protein, there's 4 calories per gram of carb, and there's 9 calories per gram of fat. Okay, and if you guys have any questions or anything, you guys can drop it down below as well. Okay, or you guys can raise your hand too. I'll be on the lookout if you guys have any questions on the spot. All right, moving along. So what do macros have to do with weight loss anyways? Okay, so macros are essential for the body, and without them, there's a lot of functions that's going to become affected. These are just some of the main benefits of macronutrients, but one, protein is a building block for muscle. It also provides energy for the body. It also takes, maybe you didn't know this, right? But it takes the most amount of energy to break down protein. So protein has a direct impact on your metabolism. If you immediately, and this is for everyone to know, and this is why protein is so important, right? If you immediately bump up your protein, you're immediately spiking up your metabolism, because this is what we call thermic effect of food, TEF. It takes the most energy compared to fats and carbs to break down protein. Okay. Carbohydrates provides the body with fuel and helps with the conversion of inactive thyroid hormone, your T4, into active thyroid hormone. Okay. So carbohydrates are needed. The more circulating T3 you have in your system, the more effective your body is at burning fat. Okay. Especially with individuals with hypothyroidism, it's actually common for people with hypothyroidism to be prescribed something that's really low in carbs, like keto. And that's not good, because your thyroid, your liver, right? Most of the thyroid conversion happens in your thyroid, and a lot happens in your liver. And both of these need carbohydrates. Now, I'm not saying you should get an excess of carbohydrates. That's also not good, but we also shouldn't be putting your body through ketosis. Okay. Healthy fats help reduce inflammation. It helps insulin organs. It aids in hormone production, and it supports your immune system. So these are so important because you want to make sure your hormones are balanced. You want to make sure, especially like from working out, there's going to be inflammation. Healthy fats are going to help you. And these are just a few of the benefits that it's going to help you with. Okay. So if you guys have any questions, once again, just drop it down below. Okay. So I designed this training because I know that a lot of members on the team may still be struggling with getting enough protein in. And this training today is not only going to educate you guys on the topic of this, it's going to give you a lot more clarity with the meaning behind like macros, but it's also going to give you a lot more ideas and give you tactical strategy and advice to actually hit your numbers that you should be hitting. Okay. Achieving a high protein diet. Everybody in the program has a higher protein diet. There's no workarounds. Just to let you guys know, if you guys have a question about, can I be in the best shape I want to be achieving? Can I be in the best shape of my life while having low protein? The answer is no. In order to increase musculature yeah, sorry, I'm losing my words here. If you're trying to increase musculature, if you're trying to maintain musculature, you need to have high protein. There's no workaround to this. Okay, so whether you're trying to lose fat or you're trying to build muscle, you need high protein. And as mentioned on the previous slide, it's a necessity for weight loss. This is a general formula. If you guys are wondering, because I had questions about this as well, what is like a good range for protein? So eating between 0.6 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight is good. Okay. If you're leaner and you have more muscle tissue, then you should be definitely getting more towards 1 gram per pound of body weight. For me, when I was doing my competition last year, I was prescribed more so like 1.25, even 1.5 grams. Why? Because I'm leaner. I've been training for some time. I have quite some muscle in my body, right? If you're carrying, and it's a ratio between how much fat mass you're holding and how much muscle mass you're holding. If you have more fat mass compared to muscle mass, you don't need as much protein. So if we go off of 0.6 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, if you're maybe carrying some body fat, maybe you have 20, 30 pounds to lose, you can go more towards like 0.6, 0.7 grams of protein per pound of body weight. Okay, now if you have a lot of body fat you're carrying and you're in the obese range, I actually don't even go off of 0.6 to 1 gram of protein, because imagine an individual is 200 pounds. It's just really unrealistic to have this individual eat like 170 to 200 grams of protein. So instead, we're going to go 0.6 to 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. So how do you get body mass? Super simple. You'll get total weight minus fat mass, and that's the calculation to get your fat mass. Okay, it's fat mass is your body weight times the estimated body fat percentage. However, many people may be struggling to find the right protein. So what we're going to do is over the next slides, I'm going to talk about what is a protein source, because I know that's a question a lot of people have, especially if they're newer to nutrition, as well as what are good carb sources and what are good fat sources as well. All right, so I've been doing some digging and trying to find the best picture for the most pure, what I mean by pure, leanest sources of protein. There's some other pictures that were showing some other things in there, like vegetables or like fattier cuts of meat, like rotisserie chicken, and we don't want so much of that. Okay, so if you're asking what are the leanest sources of protein, these are just a handful, and there's definitely more for sure, but this is a good representation of what lean sources of protein is. Okay, let me answer. Turkey's not. I know turkey's not on there. Turkey should be there, right? But yeah, these are some good examples here. So let's just say the first, I never even heard of what venison is, but let's just assume it's a really lean cut of red meat. So if you guys are wondering what are the best sources of protein, okay, think about poultry and think about seafood. Okay, think about things white in color. Poultry, seafood, egg whites. These are the leanest sources, and turkey, like Stephanie said, right? These are the leanest sources of protein. If you were to ask me what are the best sources, right, it would be these. Why? Because there's minimal fat. There's like no fat in it. Like if you look at seafood, like shrimp, there's like, I don't believe there's any fat in there, right? Maybe 1 gram, like super minuscule, right? So let me read this over here. Rachel, venison, deer. Okay, that's good to hear. Thanks for clarifying, Rachel. I actually never had deer in my life, so I guess maybe that's for the Australians. Okay, but I've actually, just so that you guys know, I've been liking Baza a lot. I've been talking about this actually on some one-on-ones with some clients today, but Baza is great. I would usually eat tilapia, but I actually realized that Baza is really inexpensive. Like I can cook a whole week's worth of Baza and that'll be good for me, and it'll cost me $7. Right. So Baza is really inexpensive. And actually, when I did a little comparison on MyFitnessPal, its macros are actually even a little bit better than tilapia. And I find it actually tastes better too. So if you guys are looking for fish over the weekend, like try Baza, because it's great for a lot of different, you can air fry it, you can put it in your food. It's super inexpensive and macros are fantastic. It's actually better than tilapia. Maybe it doesn't show here, but when I punch it in MyFitnessPal, it was actually better when I punch it in. Okay. Or at least they're going to be pretty similar. Okay. So any questions so far? He hasn't come off mute as well.
Yeah. So Basa, do you? I don't know what I was trying to look it up in French. I'm not sure what it is. Did you just find it at your local grocery store or at the fish market?
I just found it at a local grocery store, Stephanie. Like I just had it frozen. Like I'll go to the frozen section. I wouldn't get it fresh. I
Oh,
would
the frozen section. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and it was super inexpensive. Like I can get
There's
like
also some at Costco. Sorry to cut.
no worries, no
Oh,
worries.
good to
Yep,
know.
in Costco.
Ooh. Thank you.
Yep. Yep. So go frozen. Go frozen. Especially with these cuts of meat. They're not very, I don't want to say high quality, but they're just lower grade cuts of fish, but they're great in macros. So I find there's no need to get it fresh. Just get it frozen, Steph, and everyone else.
And may I ask how you prep it? Is it air fried fish or?
Yep. So a couple of ways that I've been liking it. Air fry. I'll use the same recipe for the chicken that I gave you guys. The air fried chicken, I'll use the same for the fish, and it's nice and flaky and it's great, right? With a little bit of like rice. Another one, I actually put in my pasta. So if you guys want pasta, and I'll talk about it in a quick sec, but like protein pastas, Goudos is actually a really good brand. I've been hearing this from clients. You can get it at Trader Joe's. So that's another protein pasta. You'll just have the fish, guys. You'll put it in your sauce and it tastes really great. It's nice and flaky. It's super soft and great macros. So I've been using it for like the air fryer. I've been putting it in my pasta, in the sauce of my pasta. Okay. Yeah. And you guys can see here, just like the calories are really low, like 90 calories. Okay. But any kind of meats, just so that you guys know, any kind of meats that have visible fat in there. So why are not red meats on here? Why is not like pork on here or like lamb? So generally these gamey meats have more fat, like there's more visible fat on them. That is why its macros are not the best. Even if you were to match the amount of protein compared to like Baza, it's also going to be higher calories because there's more fat. There's more saturated fats on it, right? Not to say they're not good. You still want to have red meat. Red meat has the most amount of zinc, iron. But if you want to talk about just like saving calories, what's going to give you the most protein? It's going to be these, for example, seafoods, poultry. Let's talk about vegetarian sources, vegan sources. Okay. Once again, I did some digging in. I didn't just find the first picture that popped up. I actually did some looking in, making sure everything here was something that I agree with. But this was something that was good. Okay. We got like some seitan here, some tempeh, beans, chickpeas. Okay. Edamame a powerhouse actually when it comes to beans. In 1 cup, I believe there's like 16 to 19 grams of protein in edamame. So if you guys ever go to a sushi restaurant, get that as an appetizer. That's already going to give you at least like 10 to 15 grams of protein with edamame. Okay. Just, don't have too much of like that. Don't like too much on the outside of the edamame because it's salted. If you just, have the peas, it's a great source of protein. Okay. So seitan, tempeh, we got some beans. Kidney beans are great. Chickpeas are great. Black beans are great. Okay. Yeah. If you guys have any questions, let me know. All right, let's get into some information, some education for you guys, because I know there's quite some questions on check-ins with clients. And yeah, so let's go over animal versus plant-based protein. Okay. Animal proteins are complete proteins. What does that mean? Complete proteins contain all 9 essential amino acids. Now you need all 9 to prevent muscle loss and build muscle. So there's 20 amino acids, okay? 9 of them are essential, meaning we can't get it. There's essential and non-essential. Essential means we need to get it from food. The other 11 out of 20 means we're producing it in our body. Okay, so there's 20 amino acids. 9 of them are essential, which means we have to get it from food. 11 of them are produced in our body. So we need to get all 9. Just remember 9. It's 9 EAAs that we need. And it's just really quick. You guys maybe are familiar when I say EAAs because you guys are probably familiar with BCAAs and EAAs, or at least heard of it, right? Who here hasn't heard of what BCAAs are? Okay, so quick tangent into supplementation. We have BCAAs, we have EAAs. Okay, BCAAs are branched chain amino acids. Now, I don't recommend BCAAs, and I'll explain why. So BCAAs contain only 3 out of 9 essential amino acids: leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Now, these 3, and this is where education is so important for you guys, right? These 3, they don't actually help you promote, they're not actually anabolic. They don't promote muscle growth. They prevent muscle loss, right? So instead of getting BCAAs, why not get EAAs? Because EAAs are containing all 9 essential amino acids. You can look at a brand like Ghost and they're going to provide both. It's just people just don't know. So they get BCAAs because their friend got it or it's popular. But instead of BCAAs, which only contain 3 out of 9 essential amino acids, you should get EAAs, right? From like Ghost as a company product, right? Because it contains all 9 essential amino acids. And you need all 9 to not only prevent muscle loss, but to also promote muscle gain. Does that make sense, guys? You need all 9 to prevent muscle loss and promote muscle gain. So don't get BCAAs because they only prevent muscle loss. There's value to that, but why not just get something that helps promote muscle growth as well? Okay,
What
makes
about
sense.
ISOs and protein powders? They would have all the 9 essential amino acids.
That's a good question. And most protein powders, they do have, they should be complete pro. That's a great question. Not all protein powders do. And if you actually, you have to get quite specific stuff. You actually have to look in the ingredients and the breakdown, and you're going to see like leucine, isoleucine. I'll give you some recommendations, but for the most part, most of them do. There's some that don't. It's hard to say. Like pea protein, if you guys are any vegetarians here, right? Like pea protein is a complete protein. So if you get pea protein powder, that's actually complete. There's some that don't, but you would have to look in the back and take a look like specifically in the amino acids. If you see at least like, you know, more than like 6, 7 of them, then it is like complete. Okay. Or at least just follow the brands that I recommend, because those ones are going to be complete protein powders. Okay. But if you guys are and another thing to get adding another layer to this, you know, supplements, they sell it in so many different ways. You can get isoleucine itself, right? But there's really no need to get super specific with getting one amino acid, as long as you guys just get, you know, complete proteins from your food, or if you get EAAs, if you wanted more. And just to slow down here, like, do you need EAAs specifically as a supplement? You don't, because once again, your real food contains all of them. Animal proteins are already containing all 9 essential amino acids, right? But if you were to look for additional resources, additional supplementation, then EAAs is good. And most protein powders are complete proteins. Okay. Now, most plant-based proteins are incomplete. Okay. So that's one thing. If you're a vegetarian or vegan, understand that most, that it's kind of like, you know, a trickier part, right? Most plant-based proteins are incomplete, which means they do not contain all 9 essential amino acids. However, not all plant-based proteins are incomplete, which is why it's important that a vegan or vegetarian seeks out plant-based proteins that do have all 9 EAAs. Any questions so far before I move on to the next slide? You guys are learning, right? Okay. So animal proteins, right, side by side, they are superior because they are complete. And compared to plant-based proteins, some of them are not complete, but there are some that are, and you want to seek out the ones that are. So which one are these? You guys can take note. I will put up these slides. So you guys want to save all these PowerPoints into like your Google Drive. So what are these are just some examples of vegetarian sources with all 9 EAAs. Okay. So pea protein, if you're a vegetarian, you're wondering what is the best protein powder, I recommend Nuzest, because it's a good brand. It's very notable, and it's pea protein that contains all 9 essential amino acids. Whole sources of soy have all 9 essential amino acids. Tofu, edamame, tempeh. Now, just one quick thing as well. And I was talking about this with a vegetarian client yesterday. She's like, Adrian, you know, and this is why we have this training. She's like, I find when I get enough protein, the struggle for me is I overexceed my carbs and or fats. She's like, I find it challenging as a vegetarian. And here's the thing. When you're a vegetarian, the macros for the protein sources you choose will always have to come with a little bit of carbs and fats. Like tofu, okay, as a protein source, but the only kind of downfall of tofu is it does contain some carbs. And when you guys punch that in, you guys will realize that, right? So I'll get into more of this in a quick sec for vegetarians here and vegans here, but let's move along here. So quinoa contains all 9 essential amino acids. Pita, hummus, hemp seeds. Sprouted bread is a hack, guys. I'm going to drop that for you guys. You guys should be looking for sprouted bread. So when he goes grocery shopping over this weekend, just look for some Ezekiel sprouted bread, because sprouted bread, the way they make it, right, they germinate it and then they let it sprout. It has more amino acids in there, and you can get that from your bread too. And that's actually a little foreshadowing into what I'm going to recommend for you guys in a quick bit. Spirulina is an algae, and you'll put it inside your water, and that has protein in there and all 9 essential amino acids as well. Hummus esters, hummus can be a sodium trap too, though. So you got to be looking for like a low sodium one, but a little bit with, like, let's just say what Steph mentioned earlier, like a protein tortilla wrap. That could be a nice snack too, Pooja. Like you got 12 grams from like the wrap. You can get 8 grams from the hummus. It is maybe a little bit higher in sodium, so you might want to get a lower sodium one, but it could be a pretty good snack as well. It could give you about like 15, 20 grams of protein. Look for, if you guys can find lower sodium hummus, then that'll be okay. All right, moving along here. These are just some examples, not saying all these do have 9 EAAs, but like top right is Nuzest. That's how it looks like. That's a good brand if you guys are wondering about protein sources. Edamame on the bottom right, black beans. We got mission wraps. In Canada, if you guys are located in Canada, my best recommendation, I've been getting this a lot. It's the one from President's Choice. Macro wise, it actually has the most amount of protein. I'm sure Steph, you're eating this one too, but it's by President's Choice in the protein tortilla. That one has 13 grams for one tortilla.
I couldn't find that one in Quebec, but there is one that they sell at Costco. It's called Be Free, I believe, in Quebec anyway. So I use that one. I think it's 12-gram protein, so pretty similar.
That's pretty good. Yep. And if you guys can't find those, then like Mission is pretty available, right? Should be pretty accessible. Mission wraps or like flat outs. It's called Protein Up. That one has about like 9-10 grams. Now, as you guys know, like Beyond Meat on the top left, it's a hit or miss with the vegetarians and vegans. The one thing I would say is, of course, his macros are not going to be the same. There's generally going to be less protein, more carbs, more fats, but still a decent source if you're a vegetarian or vegan. Okay, so any questions so far? Okay, moving along. So moving to carbohydrates. So who here can say they maybe struggle with carbs in terms of knowing what are the best sources, when to eat it, like what they should include in? Does anyone like you guys can say me or raise your hand? Who here feels like they may struggle with their carbohydrate selection? Let me know in the comment section. All right, so this is just going to give you guys some ideas. Once again, I was selective in choosing this picture. So all in all, you want to choose carbohydrates that are colored and brown in nature. Okay, so close said me. My best recommendation is most of your carbs should be colored. And what I mean by that is this. So we have white rice and we have brown rice, right? Funny enough, the calories are actually about the same. I don't know if you guys know that, but calories between a slice of white bread versus brown bread is actually pretty similar. Actually, some whole grains may actually have a little bit more calories, but pretty similar for the most part. The biggest difference is things that are white in color has been stripped, like white rice. They stripped it of its German brand. Okay. And the German brand contains pretty much most of the fiber and also the nutrients, right? So that is why, like white rice, you can't say I eat white rice quite often, like around the time I work out. But if you compare it with brown rice, it's not as healthy aside from calories. Like calories is the most important thing. But aside from that, like the nutrient profile, there's just much less fiber in white rice. Antioxidants much less. There's much less like vitamin A, vitamin E, and you will be able to find this inside colored grains. So all in all, try to find colored grains. Because of that, because there's more fiber, it's slower digesting. We're going to get into this in the next section. Okay, so biggest takeaway from this slide, try to find more colored grains. Super key. Okay, let's move along here. So just extending from the protein category. Okay, one last slide on protein. Carbohydrate sources of protein. This is what you guys should write this down. And I was talking about this with it earlier, the UK time group call earlier. I would have clients tell me like, Adrian, okay, if I have to get 100 grams of protein, that means I got to eat like 4 chicken breasts in a day, right? Because each chicken breast is 25 grams. I'm like, it doesn't have to be hit that way, right? Because let's just say this. There's carbohydrate sources, as what Stephanie was saying earlier, and I was talking about, like there's 10, 12 grams in like a protein tortilla, right? But there's other natural sources that have protein in there, guys. They may or may not be, and write this down. This is really important to avoid confusion and slow it down. We want to work in sequential order here. So if you're not hitting your protein, don't worry so much about complete or incomplete. Just hit your protein. You know, like if you're struggling to get more protein, your first step is trying to raise up your protein totals. Once you're there, then you can, focus more on like complete, incomplete. But anyways, let's talk about carbohydrate sources with protein. Quinoa is one example. Lentils are great. Beans, protein wraps that we talked about, protein pasta like Barilla. We got like Goudos. Chickpea pasta is also good as well. So let's just go back to the example of this client asked me, she's like, Adrian, I got to get 100 grams of protein. Are you expecting me to eat 4 chicken breasts in a day? Because I don't enjoy chicken and it's like, I find that's unsustainable. It doesn't have to be hitting that way. So let's go through an example here. Let's just say she maybe I'll just say some things hypothetically. Let's just say she had eggs, okay, in the morning, egg whites. Okay, she had egg whites. She had a little bit of egg whites and she had some beans. And let's just say that was already 25 grams. Midday, she had like a protein wrap. Okay, maybe she had a little bit of maybe then she had a little bit of turkey or chicken. That's 25 grams. That's already 50. Let's just say she didn't want to have any food, so she had a shake. She had like a pea protein shake. That's 25 grams. And at the end of the day, maybe she made a salad that has like a mix of beans, lentils, right? Maybe a little bit of like tempeh, diced up, everything diced up. That's already going to provide 20, 25 grams. So she doesn't have to only get it from chicken. And I want you guys this is one of the biggest takeaways from today's training is in order to hit a high amount of protein, it's hard to just eat it from chicken. I don't do that too. Right. So you want to find the takeaway is find a variety of sources and understand that your protein doesn't only have to be derived only from chicken breasts and like even like the seafoods I mentioned earlier. You can get it from carb sources. Okay. So any questions or comments? It's as simple as, you know, adding in a little bit. If your calories are not super, super, super low, like you can add in a little bit of edamame or beans to your taco bowl. Your pastas, change it from like regular protein to like regular pasta to like chickpea pasta, protein pasta. They taste the same, especially like Barilla pasta. Okay. All right. I know this is blurry, but do you guys know the difference between glycemic index versus glycemic load? Who here knows what the difference is? You guys can say me in the comment section. All right. We're still on the topic of carbohydrates. Okay. So let me go over this. Okay, so you guys have probably, who here has heard of glycemic index? I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of this, right, Lauren? Okay, so glycemic index is a measure of how fast a carbohydrate digests in your bloodstream. Okay, low GI is under 55, medium is 55 to 69, and high GI is ranked 70. Now, this is so important. This is actually incorrect information a lot of people are spreading. And actually, I had a client, and she had a coach from like India, and then like, she has me as a coach, and then she has that coach from India as well. And then this is what it's like conflicting information. Now I'm going to explain because I'm always right. Okay. So her coach told her not to eat fruits because some fruits are high in glycemic index, but that's incorrect actually. And I'm going to explain why. And I'm going to make you guys smart and you guys will know a lot. So you can't just look at glycemic index. That's not fair to look at. Because glycemic load is a more accurate representation of how a carbohydrate, okay, affects your blood sugar levels. Let me explain over here. So let's just say my client, she was like, oh, and by the way, guys, just to make it simple, you never hear anybody gaining weight from eating too much blueberries or eating too much watermelon. It's very unlikely that's going to happen, right? So if we look at watermelon, for example, okay, watermelon has a glycemic index of 80. So it's high. And most people are like, oh, I shouldn't eat watermelon because it's high in sugar. It's going to raise up my blood sugar levels. But understand this. So glycemic load takes into account not just the glycemic index, but it also takes into account the amount of carbohydrates per serving. So one serving of watermelon is low in carbohydrates. There's like 12 grams in like a whole cup. That's more than enough. So because of that, and this is the formula at the very bottom, because of that, the glycemic load it's considered low. It's less than 5. So the glycemic load is low. And because of that, it's not going to impact your blood sugar levels if you're just going to have like a cup. However, obviously, if you're going to have a lot, that makes a difference. I'm going to do it inverse. I'm going to reverse it here. Did you guys know that pasta is actually low in glycemic index? Low to medium? Many people are surprised to hear that. They're like, oh, I thought pasta is fast digesting. It's not good for me. And I shouldn't eat it all the time. Pasta is actually low to medium glycemic index. However, because of how much you're eating and how much carbs, because glycemic load, right? Because of how much carbs in pasta, right? You guys all know, like when you track your pasta, there's like 40, 50, beyond even 100 grams in like a serving or two, depending on how much you're eating and how much your serving is, right? So there's a lot of carbs in that. And when you have pasta, is it only the noodles that we eat, or do we put tomato sauce? Do we put cheese? Do we put meatballs? Do we put more things on top? That all adds up, right? Not just for calories. That's the most important thing that affects weight loss or weight gain, but also your glycemic load. Tomato sauce, right? High in glycemic load, let's just say. Cheese, let's just say it's faster digesting. The meatballs, maybe use a lot of breadcrumbs, right? That all affects the total glycemic load. So that affects the overall dish. Okay, so how do you figure out glycemic load? So Rachel, this calculation over here. So you're going to get the glycemic index of a food. How do you get the glycemic index? You're just going to look at the glycemic index chart. So as you can see, like previous slide over here, I know it's, when I put it up, it wasn't this blurry, right? But you can get an idea there. Like spaghetti, you can see is 42. So it's actually my bad. So it's actually like it's actually low. But you're gonna look at that chart, you're gonna get the glycemic index, Rachel, then you're gonna get that times the amount of carbohydrates in a serving of your carb, and then divided by 100. And that's how you get glycemic load. Super simple formula. Okay, so any questions here so far? So I know this is kind of getting technical and everything, and I'm not here to confuse you guys. I want to educate you guys, but all in all, to make it simple, foods that are colored grains are going to be low in glycemic load. Keep it simple. Things that are white colored are going to be higher in glycemic load. Fruits, eat your fruits. Don't avoid fruits. Fruits don't make you gain weight. Okay, unless you're eating a copious amount of watermelon, then that's going to maybe have an effect on your blood sugar levels. Have a handful. Have a handful a few times in a day. That's perfectly fine. And you don't want to avoid fruits because they're packed with nutrients. Okay. Let's talk about timing of carbohydrates. You guys probably heard me talk about this before, but just to inform you guys a little bit more. So timing of carbohydrates. So just because I put the carb recommendations above, and I mentioned like Lauren had more, colored grains, it doesn't mean you can never have white rice or even donuts ever again. As you guys know, I'm big on flexible dieting. However, majority of your sources should be switched to the recommendations that I mentioned above. Okay. There are going to be times where faster digesting carbs, or you could say like less healthy because they are less healthy. There's less like fiber and nutrients in them. There's a better time where these faster digesting carbs can be consumed. Do you guys remember when I talked about this? Like the best times are right before you work out, and the second best time is right after you work out. You guys remember that, right? So why is before the best time? Because carbs, what happens? It gets broken down to glucose, and that's instant energy, pretty much like fuel, right? So at least when you have instant fuel, you're going to be able to quickly metabolize it when you're working out. Right. So if you were to have like a higher carb meal, and I know Steph, like we talked about this before, like a cheat meal specifically and higher in carbs, the best time would be probably before workout. The second best time would be after workout, because you're immediately you can replenish lost glycogen. Glycogen is pretty much excess glucose stored in your liver, your muscles. However, this is really important, because I think most people like to eat a really big cheat meal after they work out. The reality is most of us don't need that much or that big of a cheat meal after you work out. Unless you're working out for hours on end and it's super intense, it's like a leg day, then sure, you can have like a somewhat bigger cheat meal afterwards. Most people like on the team are working out like less than an hour. It's moderate intensity. So a healthy meal is still best after you work out. I'm not encouraging you guys to have like your cheat meal afterwards, and you probably may not need one afterwards. But once again, just timing wise, if you really have to choose when is the best time to have a cheat meal, it would be pre-workout. Okay. If there's donuts you want to have, don't have it at nighttime when you're in bed and you're not going to move, because that's going to spike up your insulin. You're not going to be able to metabolize it as effectively. Your body still is doing its work when you're sleeping. Insulin's being released, right? But when you can actually work out and help out your body, get your body moving, work out, pump glycogen, glucose into your muscles, like that's actually going to help the metabolism of the carbohydrates. Okay, so any questions so far? This is all making sense, right? Like I'm explaining it simply. You guys are able to absorb the information. This is all making sense, right? No one here is confused. I want to make sure you guys are not confused. Is anyone here confused or feel like, I'm not explaining it as simply as I could? Everything's making sense, right? So with anybody here that has PCOS, this carbohydrate section is definitely important for you, because PCOS, and we went over a training. If you haven't watched a PCOS training, Pooja and Cassie, we had it last week. Watch a replay. But with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, the main thing is just the insulin sensitivity, or the insulin resistance. So that is why like timing of carbs, the type of carbs, that's going to be more impactful, and it's more important for someone with PCOS. Yeah, does anyone have any questions on that? And really, like, it's all about sequence, right? Don't worry so much, guys, about like the complete versus incomplete protein. If you're not hitting enough protein, if you're barely able to get 50 grams of protein, your first step is raising protein, however way you can get it. The second thing, if you're over consuming carbohydrates, your first step is just reduce your carbohydrates. You don't have to get super picky on, just try to reduce your carbohydrates. If you're barely eating and you're coming from keto, right, your first step is try to get more carbohydrates in. And afterwards we can start to like fine tune things. So if that not being within range is the first thing you're struggling with, get within range. That's the first step. Okay. So it's kind of like an example here. Like I have my coach just to kind of give an example. So my coach is like, he's a competitor. He's one of Canada's best in his age group. Okay. And I hired him as a coach last year. And not that he does this often, but protein is so important for him that if he's missing protein, it's late at night, he'll get some chicken nuggets from McDonald's. Now, he's not advocating to do that all the time, but like what I'm saying is like getting within range is the most important thing. As that example, like what I said, he'd rather get chicken nuggets rather than be like 50 grams short on protein. Now, if he has some room, he might spill over a little bit. That's not good, obviously, right? But it's better to still hit like protein, get within range of the numbers than, you know, be very short on protein. Okay. All right. So healthy fats. Last one is healthy fats. Now fats is the one where it's a little bit, we don't need that much fats. As you guys see your macros, like it's the number that's the smallest, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, there's the most amount of calories per gram of fat. There's 9 calories per gram of fat. This is not to recommend you guys have a lot of it. It's just to let you guys know, like, these are some better options compared to unhealthy fats. So the only downfall with fats and why I don't recommend having a lot of it is because they're high in calories. Parmesan cheese. We all like cheese. Most people like cheese here, I'm assuming, right? Unless you're lactose intolerant or you just don't like it. But cheese is high in calories, but it has benefits to it. It's good in calcium, which is good for your bones, right? Avocado is really good. There's a lot of like healthy fats, omega-3, mono unsaturated fats, but it's high in calories. One avocado has like 200, 220, 240 calories, right? Peanut butter is healthy. There's mono polyunsaturated fats, but peanut butter is quite high in calories. If you have 2 tablespoons, it's already 150, 200 calories. Chocolate, obviously, we don't want to have a lot of chocolate, but there's antioxidants in dark chocolate. But what I'm trying to show from this slide is try to incorporate a little bit of healthy fats in there, except salmon, you want to have more of that because protein, and eggs, you know, have a little more of that. But having some avocado, like, and by the way, when you guys have avocado, like, you guys should not use one whole avocado or even half an avocado in your recipe, right? You should probably use like 1/3 or like 1/4. Okay. But yeah, any questions? A little bit of these fats, and these are just some examples. There's obviously other ones, but these are just examples of like some healthy fats you can include in pumpkin seeds, chia seeds. All right. Somebody had a great question. I think it was Beatrice in the training earlier, but she was like, Adrian, and this is what she put in the check-in form. She was like, Adrian, you know, I'm Spanish, and like a lot of stuff that I eat on a daily basis has like, you know, some butter, some oils. How do I work around it? Or like, we have a lot of clients with a cultural background. What if I have some client that's maybe of Indian background? She's like, I have a lot of like, you know, a lot of cooking has like, you know, more oils and more, how do I maneuver around this and use flexible dieting for that? So let's finish up this training talking about fun ways to substitute food in flexible dieting. Okay. Now that you guys all have a much better understanding of what a macro is, fats, carbs, protein, and the sources of it, it's time to apply your knowledge and be on the lookout for these macros. So here's some simple recommendations when making switches. Keeping it very simple. Takeaway for protein is aim for animal sources if you can, unless you're vegetarian, of course, right? And aim for white meat. Poultries, seafoods, those are your first go-tos. Okay? If you have red meat, which is still really good, remove all visible fats. So you shouldn't have like a prime rib that has a bunch of fats, visible fats in there. Yeah, it's great protein, but you're coming with a lot of fats and a lot of calories. And you can still gain weight when you eat too much fatty meats because it's too much calories. Carbohydrates, we should aim for plenty of vegetables and fruits and colored grains. Okay, so plenty of fruits, vegetables, and colored grains. Brown in color because it has its germ and it has its bran still there. Fats, this is important. So this is actually important to answer Beatrice's question and anybody that maybe has their cooking has a little more calories and oils. Calories coming from oils. So aim for nuts, seeds, avocados, fish. Okay. And limits or avoid extra oils, butters, spreads, as most of these contain too much saturated and trans fats, and because of that, excess calories. So moving on to this final last slide. If you follow, right, these simple tips from the previous slides, then you will hit more within range and you're going to be able to hit your nutrients. Remember, guys, it's not about just hitting calorie range and macro range because I'm good enough to do it with McDonald's. I can go to McDonald's and I can have like more chicken nuggets. But we don't want to get it through that because there's no nutrients or barely any nutrients in those. And it's a lot of cons rather than pros. Too much sodium, trans fat, and the list goes on. Okay. If you're new to this, remember that things don't have to be perfect and that's okay. So you're going to keep replacing things with a replacement method and you're going to keep learning about flexible dieting from me where you become more skilled. Okay. However, let's answer this based on what Beatrice asked, whether Spanish foods and let's just say if your background is your Indian food is like what you enjoy. This is what I'm going to say. So there are going to be some cultural foods that are going to be harder to navigate around, such as curries, oil-based pastas. So what should you do in these cases? This is my best answer. It may not be something you want to hear, but it's this. So if a dish is irreplaceable in terms of the ingredients are just really high in oils, the meats you have to use, it has to be fatty cuts of meat like pork, then you just can't have it on a daily basis. So imagine like a Filipino dish. Let's just say, because my partner, she's Filipino, and there's a lot of dishes that are like, what is it? Like pork. You would just not be able to eat that every single day. Why? Because let's just say a dish is irreplaceable. It has to be pork. That's really hard because pork is high in fats. So instead of having it on as a daily, you just got to make it something like a cheat meal, maybe once a week, twice a week or so. Now, to answer Beatrice's question before, there are some dishes I looked into that can be, you need to modify it. So it's either modify it or make it into cheat meals where you have it much less frequently. Let's just say a Spanish dish she was using. Let's just say it was like the oils. She would, usually it's like canola oil or some kind of oils you have to use. I told her, okay, in this case, can you do cooking spray? She's like, yes. Then we switch out to cooking spray. That dish, that Spanish dish had chicken thighs and usually traditionally chicken thighs. I'm like, you can modify it. I know it might not taste the same, but you just got to use chicken breast. Switch it to chicken breast. Okay. In terms of like the sauces she uses, if she's using any kind of mayonnaise or anything, she'll go light mayo, right? So because of these modifications, now she can have this every day if she wanted because the macros are a lot better. So if you have any cultural foods, make modifications to it. If you can't change it because it's just too stable of an ingredient, then you just can't have it every single day. Like curries, for example, are really challenging. So curries, because you're going to have to use dairy or like coconut milk and oils, right? And or oils, it's hard to really find a replacement for that. So you shouldn't have curries every single day. It should be something more like a cheat meal. And even when you have a cheat meal, you don't have as much of the sauce. You spoon out more of the protein. So if you can modify it, if you can't, you just have to move it towards something you eat less frequently. At the end of the day, I'm teaching you guys flexible dieting, and it's true. You guys can eat whatever you want, but you still have to keep 70 to 80% of your foods healthy in order to get results. You can't have just about every single thing you want every single day. Okay. But yeah, guys, you guys have any questions? Any questions, any comments? You guys can type on the comment section or come off mute. What do you guys think? Did you guys learn some things from today?
I really like today's topic. I think it was really good.
Thanks, Stephanie. It's good to hear.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Anybody have any questions or comments? Yeah, let's see in the comment section. You're welcome, Gloria. And it's nice to see you in here as well. All
Actually,
right.
maybe a question touching your your comment about your coach. You said he'd rather have like chicken, not chicken wings, but those McNuggets from McDonald's. How quickly, if we're not hitting the protein, which I think I touched base on that when I was on vacation, like the only protein sources were like literally fish, chicken, and eggs. So like when I was trying to have protein for breakfast, it wasn't super easy to achieve. So I know I was like under my protein goal. So how quickly are we losing muscle mass when we're not hitting the protein? Like how badly do we need to hit that protein on a daily basis? I know like when I'm not on vacation, it's easy to achieve for me, but when I was, I'm curious.
That's a great question. So it depends on different variables, right? So my coach, he has a lot of muscle on his frame.
Mm-hmm.
The more muscle you have, the more important it is to keep a high amount of protein. Remember like that range I was showing you and everyone else, Steph? Like when you have more lean muscle tissue, you have to go in the higher range of protein, like at least one. He's eating nearly like 1.5 to even 1.75. So if you have a lot of muscle and you go low protein, the effects will be more prominent because you have so much lean tissue on your body. And like when you have lean tissue, like the main source is protein. So it's going to be more significant for him, but it depends, right? It depends on other variables like sleep, stress, but let's just say all these other variables were constant. And it depends on training as well. If all these variables were constant, he's still training hard and all these things, and protein went lower, I would say you would see a difference within a week for sure. Like guys, like protein, like having a high enough protein, right? You do feel it on a week by week basis. If you had a week where you don't get enough protein, you will feel it on the next week's training or the upcoming trainings. So it can be as fast as something within, I would say, on a weekly basis, Stephanie.
Okay. Good to know.
Yep. Especially when someone has more lean muscle tissue, it's even more important. If they're
Right.
leaner, have less body fat and more lean muscle tissue is even more important.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I find that I need to hit protein shake to hit my, is it a problem to have a daily? It's definitely not a problem. Actually, with a lot of clients that are kind of like training up to build up protein, it's actually okay. And it's actually what I do recommend because it's just not realistic to always get it from real food, Gloria. So that's totally fine to have a shake every single day. That's perfectly okay. Eventually, the goal is if we can kind of like wean off of it and just have it from real food and build up like your protein in real food, that is ideal. But even to this day, for me, I still have to get protein shakes because even if it's back-to-back days, because it's just some days we're busy, we're all working. It's unrealistic to always have like, for me, like 4 or 5 meals. I just can't. So it's totally okay. As long as this is not okay though for everyone else. I've seen diaries and clients where half of their day is protein shakes, protein snacks, beef jerky. That's not okay. Why? Because it's still artificial, like beef jerky, protein bars. You're still getting artificial sweeteners, other stuff in there you probably can't pronounce, right? It's better than nothing, but it's still not ideal if you have half your foods as like from these things. Real food is nonetheless most superior. All right, guys, great training. I will post this up and Lauren will send in times for you guys to touch base with me very soon as well. But it's nice to see you guys, Steph, Chloe, Lauren, Rachel, Gloria. Keep crushing it. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye-bye.